So, yeah, we have a lot of ground here to cover today. You're obviously a big proponent of Bitcoin. You just launched the Bitcoin Trust on the Toronto Stock Exchange. I guess before we dive in, a little thoughts on that, because I know we just saw a new ETF launch in Canada, the first Bitcoin ETF. So tell us about the trust.
Well, you make a very good point that there's a few new launches happening in Canada, and the Canadian regulators have been more open to new ideas in this space, and that's a trend that we've seen, playing out in other industries, cannabis and in the psychedelics space. And so I think it's no surprise that we're seeing Canada acting as a testing ground for these new structures. The Bitcoin Trust, launched by 9 Point Partners, is a way for investors to get exposure to Bitcoin in a listed vehicle. And there are other options like it available in Canada. And if
Right.
investors would like to learn more about ours, they can speak to their investment advisor or they can check out our website.
Okay, very cool. So obviously you make a compelling case for Bitcoin. You see it as, the ultimate asset, money. But I want to focus on your thoughts there that we shouldn't get wrapped up in the day-to-day movement and price action because we missed a profound truth. What do you mean by that?
Well, the profound truth is this, which is that money, which is one of humanity's greatest and most enduring innovations, is going through another profound shift. Money has evolved over time from cowrie shells to precious metals to banknotes and bank balances. And now it's entering in this new phase. Money is becoming digital. And there are a few competitors out there, I guess, who are trying to stake their claim for the future of money, traditional entities like corporations and governments. But it's my view that there are at least 9 different reasons why Bitcoin has as strong a case to make as any as to why it should be the future of money. And that's why, I used to work in the traditional capital markets. I worked for a Canadian investment bank called Canaccord Genuity,
Right.
and I quit my job in 2015 at the ripe old age of 29 to pursue a full-time career in this space with no real idea of what I was going to do. But I was convinced then, as I am now, that Bitcoin was not only the most important innovation in financial services or in technology, but that it represented potentially the future of money itself.
And you see it as an evolution of gold. Your article on American Consequences calls it almost the new gold, and you compare Bitcoin to gold. So let's talk about that, because when we are talking about a store of wealth, obviously, gold and Bitcoin both come up. And the argument is, well, look, gold has a 5,000-year track record. It's the ultimate safe haven. If I invest today, I could feel kind of good about where I'll be in 20, 30 years. Uh, Bitcoin has a 12-year history and a very volatile history at that. How can it be a store of value?
Yeah, well, it's a great point. So there are certain similarities between Bitcoin and gold, which I think is one of the reasons why we found a lot of success with investors who are used to looking at gold and gold companies. So the first thing is that Bitcoin has a limited supply. There are currently around 18.5 million Bitcoin. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in circulation. Similar to gold, there's a certain amount of gold that exists in circulation, and there's only going to be so much that we're able to extract from the earth. So that's point number one. Point number two is that both of these entities are not controlled by corporations or governments. So there's no way to, basically manipulate the supply by printing more gold, and you can't print more Bitcoin either. So the fact that it is a monetary asset independent from government that offers a check on inflation and fiscal irresponsibility makes Bitcoin attractive in that respect. They neither Bitcoin nor gold have cash flows. You don't pay a dividend or clip a coupon from either of these assets. But in a low rate environment where the real risk is currency inflation, that's not really a big concern. And then the final thing, and this is probably the most important one, is that both Bitcoin and gold are increasingly seen as a store of value. Now, that might seem like kind of a circular argument, but it's true. With gold, there's some demand for jewelry and demand for electrical components and so forth, but that's not the thing that drives the price of gold. The thing that drives the price of gold is the perception amongst companies, individuals, institutions, that it is a store of value. And so as perceptions begin to change around Bitcoin, as more and more companies and individuals begin to buy and store it for those reasons, the more robust that thesis becomes. But there's some ways in which Bitcoin, I think, is superior to gold. For one, it's much easier to store, much cheaper to store. It's much easier and cheaper to move. You can send hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin between two people on opposite ends of the earth, and do so for a tiny fee or no fee if you're willing to wait a bit, and do so, in a few minutes or hours. To do that with gold would obviously be far more complex. Bitcoin can be infinitely divided into small increments, which is something you can't really say for gold, at least not as a payment method. Moving a tiny filament of gold is practically difficult. And I think with Bitcoin, there's future growth potential that gold doesn't have. I think gold will always be, an important store of value investment in a portfolio, but I think it's unlikely that gold becomes the global reserve currency or some kind of global payment network.
I mean, could you see that happening with Bitcoin?
Well, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, put it to you that way. The way that I see it, Bitcoin today is around $1 trillion and gold is around 10 trillion. So for me, opportunity number one for Bitcoin is to capture some of that market share and some of that mind share. Beyond that, and we're talking about a multi-decade, thesis playing out here, there is potential that Bitcoin becomes more deeply integrated into the financial system and does become a unit of account and a medium of exchange for a lot of people. People in Canada where I live or in the United States where you live are used to like a fairly well-functioning financial system, but in places in the world where that doesn't exist, Bitcoin usage is already highly penetrated. So in Nigeria, for example, a third of people in Nigeria use cryptocurrencies on a regular basis, not as a store of value and not as a investment where they hope to make money, but as a way to survive, as a way to make payments move value and to perform daily financial functions. So there are billions of people in the world who live in similar circumstances, and so I can see Bitcoin catching on in those places as a new form of money, whereas in North America it's still very much a financial investment. So anyway, so to my mind, there are a number of other reasons why I think Bitcoin is a compelling investment right now, but it's similarities to gold and the ways in which it improves, I think are worth paying attention to. And I'll just finish on this regards to this question. You said gold has a 5,000-year track record, and it's true, it does. But so did the horse before the internal combustion engine was created and before automobiles hit the road. And we still ride horses today, and people still collect them, and we still bet on horse races. But they're really more of a novelty than something that's widely used. I'm not saying that's the way that gold is going, but paradigms do change. And when they do, these kinds of disruptions can occur.